All of this is just common sense. Now, what does Kerry mean when he complains that this is the 21st century and Putin's acting like it's the 19th century? What does he really mean when he's saying that? Have you thought about that as I ask you to? What does he really mean or believe? Let's go to the audio sound bites and let's listen to him say it a couple of times. This is today. He went over to Kiev in Ukraine. He went over there and made some remarks. And that's supposed to scare Putin and bring Putin around the 21st century. Here is what our esteemed Secretary of State said.
Go to the UN. Raise the issue in the Security Council. Go to the OSCE. Raise it in one of the human rights organizations. There are countless outlets that an organized, structured, decent world has struggled to put together to resolve these differences so we don't see a nation unilaterally invade another nation. There's a better way for Russia to pursue its legitimate interests in Ukraine. Russia can choose to comply with international law and honor its commitments under the Helsinki Final Act under the United Nations Charter.
Now, what does that mean? That, to me, is so profoundly embarrassing, naive, and silly that it illustrates precisely why people like this should never, ever get this close to actual leadership and decision-making in our government. What Kerry is saying, hey, didn't you take the conflict resolution class? You know, you should go shake his hand. We don't need to start beating people up and hitting people. Why don't you could go to the UN, you could go there and you could talk about it, or you could go to the OSCE, you could go to human rights organizations, there are countless outlets, any number of groups that you could go to. You don't have to do that. Why are you doing this? You don't have to do this. Senator Kerry, why don't you go down, find a leader of the Mexican drug cartel and talk to him about this? Why don't you go down to Castro and say, Fidel, we're here now. You don't need to be putting your people in prisons anymore, man. Come on, it's the 21st century. Why don't you head over to the Chicoms and tell them to lighten up on Tibet, Senator Kerry? There is absolutely no cognizance of the realities of the world. It was I, Il Rushbo, who profundly wrote, "Ours is a world governed by the aggressive use of force." And if you dare look at history, you will find that that's always been the case. Time and time and time and time again. And there's no, Barack Obama and John Kerry, in their minds, maybe they're the smartest and most competent, most caring people ever lived, but they're not going to change that. Well, I think I wouldn't compare him to Neville Chamberlain. You could, but I just think this is so naive. Here, grab soundbite 25. There's more of this. He wasn't through complaining.
If Russia does not choose to de-escalate, if it is not willing to work directly with the government of Ukraine, as we hope they will be, then our partners will have absolutely no choice but to join us to continue to expand upon steps we have taken in recent days in order to isolate Russia politically, diplomatically, and economically. The fact is, this is the 21st century, and we should not see nations step backwards to behave in 19th or 20th century fashion. There are ways to resolve these differences. Great nations choose to do that appropriately.
You absolute buffoon! You see, you don't have to, we don't do it this way anymore, Vlad. You could have written a very stern letter to the New York Times and warned Ukraine. Oh, sorry, Putin did that.